Good morning, guys. It's August the 13th, 2019. Someone let me know if you're getting audio, if it needs to come up or come down. Sounds good here in the monitors, but I can't tell what you guys are getting. I appreciate it. Good morning, Joy, Jay, Ronald. Um, Joy, that was some very interesting information you sent me. I appreciate that. Thank you. Guys, we're going to talk about a couple little things, but this trade war deal with China is kind of the top of the list for a number of reasons. And you're looking at some of the indices now, and the Dow Jones, if you look at the top of the chart, thank you guys, is up 425.47. It's been up over 500 this morning. At the market open, it was up 90, and then it started rising 500. It's kind of fluctuating back down. But down, if you notice the Hang Seng Index in the very bottom, they closed at minus 543. And these have been going up and down together since China let its dollar or currency devaluate a few weeks ago. And so what has happened this morning, and I think it's a chess move by the U.S. as the China's market was closed, basically, and I think it still is. It may be about to reopen. I don't know the exact time. Trump made a major move and if you, at first, you have to kind of look at the deal and then realize what has happened. So instead of what happened was Trump put a temporary halt on tariffs from China. Remember, he was about to put a 10% import tax on all of their products, including the cell phones and monitors, things like that. Well, they backed off this morning until December the 15th. Now, this was why when the Chinese markets were basically sleeping. So our markets jumped. We'll see what theirs does when it opens. It's been, again, 543 minus 2. You notice the cursor. It's the Hang Seng Index. So remember in the video I did last week, there's a chart that shows a trade war, currency war, hot war, and how the steps evolve from one to the other. And the key thing was the first one that strikes wins. And that first move by China was to devaluate their currency below that 7-point kind of warning range. When they did that, they made the first move. They won that one. But this one, we won because Trump did it. And you've got a lot of people here, especially Apple. Their stocks are part of this jump this morning because of the cell phone tariffs being eased. Now, that is just one of the moves. But again, that a couple of the items that were going to be permanently tariffed all across all the imports from China, a couple of those have been taken off the list. But there's been a delay on the other ones, but that's Trump giving the Chinese time to think about the deal. Do you really want to go down this road? And all he's doing is trying to level out the playing field. And of course, the Democrats and many of the rhinos are complaining because their Chinese connections are not very happy, right? Just because he wants it level. And there's going to be pain in it. And who was hurt last week the most when Trump announced it? Well, what happened was China said, well, we're not going to buy U.S. agricultural products. And so it kind of looked like a dark day for our farmers. Still is. This hasn't taken into effect yet. But I think by Trump kind of putting it's a smart move, but he put this hand of peace out to China on this tariff reduction. In other words, that's going to help the manufacturers, the Apple products, the monitors we use and things like that in China. Now and he's hoping, I think, if I'm looking at it right, that China will ease the restrictions on importing U.S. agricultural products. You see what I'm saying? Kind of tit for tat here. But the reason I say that is because China is in a lot of trouble. If they don't buy U.S. products, agricultural products, grain and other things, their people are going to starve because they can't get enough from the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is having ag problems too, with drought. Of crop infestation with bugs and things, but China is being hit harder than most of them. So it's kind of a catch them right at the point where they really need to make a deal. And that's what we're seeing. And I'm going to go and change this screen just a moment, guys. Hang in there. I want to show you an article that's come out about China that I think is an important move. Again, this article came out this morning. The tariffs were eased up. Our markets jump, and I think Hang Seng may come up. But what's one of the key factors in the Hang Seng index is the Hong Kong protest. So that's going to have a weighting effect on that. Give me 1 second. Now, what you're looking at is an article. Notice this morning from Zero Hedge. It says fall armyworm invades China, wreaks havoc on agricultural lands. Major deal. Now, China's agricultural ministry warned in June that it found fall armyworms in 21 provinces across 333,000 hectares of crops. Now, guys, a hectare, you can round it off to 2.5 acres. 1 hectare, it's actually 2.47, but you can get close enough. But 2.47 acres are in 1 hectare. So you can see this is a large area. This was back in June. It says, again, these armyworms, 21 provinces, 330,000 hectares of crops. It says fall armyworms are a destructive garden pest that can destroy a wide variety of crops as well as grasses. Chinese officials are worried about prevention and control measures of the pest might be falling, which could lead to crop losses this year. Now let's move forward from June, and I'll show you some of the pictures that are coming in. Now, what you're seeing is under this article, it's just a basic ag chart, and it shows the cycle of this worm. In this case, it's eating the corn, and it's laid from a moth underground and then hatches, climbs up, and destroys whatever it can eat. Okay? And these moths can travel 60 miles overnight. So it's a very fast spreading cycle, very fast. I pulled it down. It says Beijing warned fall armyworms could damage hundreds, if not thousands, of hectares of crops, leading to possible food security issues for the country. To counter the pest, China has requested farmers in the 21 provinces to use government-approved pesticides. The heart-devouring worm, as locals call it, has spread almost 1,900 miles north. Think about that. That's almost all the way across the U.S. Since migrating from neighboring Myanmar earlier this year, it now threatens the 21 provinces and regions in China and could heavily impact the country's grain output. Not only their food, but their money from the exports. In Yunnan, a province in southwestern China, the pest has already destroyed 86,000 hectares of corn, sugarcane, sorghum, ginger, and crops. As you're looking at, what, 250,000 acres? And I'm going to pull this down, guys, because there's some pictures of the before and after these worms. Now, guys, here in the U.S., everybody's seen, if you ever been in around a garden or seen the worms that get in the top of a corn. But if you look at this, they strip the entire plants. Check that out, before and after. Complete devastation. It's amazing. And so, guys, remember one of the horses in Revelation we're talking about with the scales and the famine? And this is what the moth looks like. It says the moth flies again 60 miles per night. Overnight, it can cover. The pests have strained small farmers who produce at least 90% of the country's crops. 90%. In hard-hit Yunnan, the local government has installed 3,500 monitoring sites at farms to observe the pest and agricultural conditions. The province agricultural bureau wrote to Reuters via email. It says sugarcane farmer Yan in Mekang village said the only answer to the fall armyworm disaster is to spray the crops with pesticides. And guys, they're going to go, it's going to be an all-out war, but in some places it's way too late. So you're going to poison what's left of the small streams and everything else. It says you'll have to keep spraying chemicals. If you don't kill the worm, you will end up penniless. So their backs up against the wall, these small farmers. It says Wu Gaia, a professor of insect ecology at Nanjing Agricultural University, said the pests have ruined crops in the country south, but the outlook for corn production in the north wasn't affected as much. As the destructive pests spread to agricultural provinces, this could lead Beijing to purchase even more grains from Latin America countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay. Now, guys, they're going to turn back. Watch. This is just my prediction. They're going to come back with to Trump because he's easing some of these sanctions or these tariffs and say, let's buy some grain. You understand the psychology that's being used? As of last week, China halted all agricultural purchases with the U.S. and continued ramping up agricultural imports from Latin America and the rest of the world. The halt in purchases come in response to the Trump's administration's announcement of 10% tariffs on an additional $300 billion of China imports earlier this month. Trade war. China is also dealing with unprecedented outbreak. Listen, of African swine fever called pig Ebola. It's ravaging the country's pig industry through the second quarter of 2019, 2H19. About a quarter of the country's pig herd has been wiped out because of the disease. The rider with the scales. It's got a couple of charts. Let me pull it down just one moment. This is showing the some of the differences in the hog inventories, the breeding sows. That's the market terminology on this, and the rapid decline from January to June. Go down, it says, due to trade war disputes, China slapped American pork with 62% tariffs. Now, that's cutting your nose off to spite your face with the imports of the pork and the grain, because your country's losing to this worm and to the pork Ebola. So who's winning the trade war? Is it China or the U.S.? China's agricultural complex is being hit with several disasters that if it wasn't for the trade war, American farmers would be taking full advantage of. Guys, I think that's about to change. But you never know. China could get so desperate, it says, because the last thing they need with Hong Kong spiraling out of control is food inflation and starvation. Let's go back and look at these markets just a moment. Now, what we're looking at is the Dow Jones currently up 407.8, 26,305. Remember, Hang Seng closed at 543, somewhere right in there. So that was a move, market move early this morning with perfect timing, considering all the outside factors. Yes, Nine, they have a huge population to feed. And you're right. Christine, collapse is what the New World Order wants. Bring about chaos. It will collapse. But what you got to do is you still got to keep your heads up and you got to fight to the end. And that's what we're seeing here is in this trade war. And what you want to make sure that it never leads to a hot war. But nations, and we've talked about this, guys, on the communities, if it ever hit the fan and food became scarce, neighbors would more than likely turn on neighbors to feed their family. That hunger is a instinct of survival that's primeval. And so nations are the same way as communities. If you got what if you got nothing to lose, why not go for it? But anyway, these are major indicators of where we're at. But I'm going to move the chart down just a little, show you a couple of things. Now this chart, I moved it to 1 month. It was on 1 year. And you can see coming into the 1st of August, right in that area, when on the day that China let their currency devaluate, we started seeing the trade war and currency wars escalating. So far, even though both markets until now, except for a couple of days, have been parallel in declines or upticks, now we're seeing a separation of the U.S. markets and the Chinese markets. They're going down, and we're trying to come back up to this mark. We're still in good shape at 26,301, but these are indicators. We're still a 1-day bounce is hard to chart. It's hard to watch because if you look at this monthly chart, we've had a drop, a spike, drop further, a little small spike, drop further, that pattern. So we'd have to watch it and see if that continues. Now, what we may see happen the rest of this week is that both markets start to rise, both the again, Asian markets and U.S. markets, if they come to some deal, especially with the farmers. We've already conceded on our side with some of the electronics. But now we're going to have to see if it will help our farmers, which is a big deal, guys. China's farmers are getting wiped out. Our farmers need all the help we can get because that's who feeds America. A lot of us are farmers too, but we still rely on outside crops. But big cities are not farmers. They completely rely on outside farm production and agricultural import. But guys, what you're seeing again, we're at 410. This should hold out through the day. Now, once the Chinese markets fully come online, we may see some variations, and we'll look at it. Again, market closes at 3 p.m. Central Time. So about 2:30 or so is a good time to watch it. But guys, we kind of know the trend. There are other things that are happening around the world. You remember about a week ago, there was a major explosion in Russia at one of their weapons ammunition base, and now they are talking about nuclear radiation. And now this morning, Russia's announcing that they are evacuating. It's not mandatory, but they are suggesting an evacuation for several of the villages around that area where that blew up. Now, no one has really said what happened, but we have a major radiation leak there. So if you have any agricultural products in that area, it's not going to help. But this morning, the same thing happened to an Iranian ammo dump, and it was one sitting right on the border with Iraq, right near the green zone, and it was a major explosion. No one saw what happened. There's no reports on it yet. There was different cameras pointed in that direction that picked up the explosion. It was, again, another major one, extreme shock wave. Nick, you said, I think it was a missile. Nick Robinson, my friend from my birth town of Austin, Texas, he says, I think it was a missile that exploded. I saw a video from YouTube Heaven Bound channel. Thank you, Nick. Nick, was that the Russian base or the Iranian base that you're talking about? Thanks for coming in. Yeah, the Russian definitely looked like a nuke explosion. And right now, again, they're under voluntary evacuation because of a radiation leak in Russia. But The the cameras that I saw at all came. The only thing they showed was as the once the explosion started and the aftermath. It was never enough film, except what maybe we're talking about with Nick here. It was Russia. Okay, Nick, I don't doubt it, because Russia and Iran are tied hand in hand in their plans to open up, to take over the Middle East. Russia wants their natural gas pipe to Europe. They want military naval bases along in the Mediterranean, and they're hand in hand with China, who wants the Silk Road deal. But again this morning, another explosion on the Iraqi-Iranian border near the Green Zone, but it was on the Iranian side, and it was Iranian ammo base. Huge explosions. And if you think about it, remember the video yesterday about the satellites and HARP and the hurricanes and what the technology is capable of doing? That same heat could be applied to any base on the planet. No one would see anything incoming if it was set up where that couldn't happen. They would you wouldn't see the heat. It's invisible. Now the instruments would pick up the EMP pulse, just like they did over Russia, and just like in the video they're talking about what the so-called elves are doing, that big round red donut that we looked at that burst over the storm in the Caribbean, the exact moment that it started disintegrating. Madmen controlling the weather. But here we're looking at, again, 387, 390, right in that area. This is good for the U.S. Again, what we should all hope for is that they open up the grain market in China, and that'll take a lot of pressure off of our farmers that are already under a lot of pressure from the floods. So they don't need anything else weighing on them. Now, Trump is saying that he's going to step in and help these guys out. And if you don't keep your farms going, you're going to be in real trouble. And it's in China, remember, 90% of their farms are small farms. So that's a lot of people you need to watch out for. Let's see. The only heirloom seeds can produce food that have seeds that can be harvested that will produce again. That's right. Organic means chemical free. Next to impossible to find organic heirloom seeds or seedlings locally. Tammy Farrell, thank you. By the way, we have those seeds. If you go to our website, I didn't mean to bring this up, but you did. If you go to our website, click on the links to my Patriot Supply. They have a full supply, and these are sealed in long-lasting cans of hundreds of heirloom seeds, and they have different packages depending on what you want to plant. Starting at around $25, you can get about over 1,000 seeds in in all sealed and individual Mylar packs, packed into another sealed can. Excellent seeds. I have some in my garden, and just go to, not right now, but go over if you're interested in it. And just last week we planted our fall garden, and I'm taking advantage of this heat and this rain we're getting. It's 88 degrees outside now, but the heat index is 105. And yesterday, guys, in the afternoon, and I recorded it at 119. It's amazing. Shields weak, gamma ray. When you walk outside, now I want you to think differently. If the sunshine hitting your skin, think cosmic radiation, because that's what's causing this. And with these mad scientists trying to knock out these hurricanes, and I have no doubt in my heart that that's what they're doing, especially with what we saw yesterday. They don't understand that if the earth doesn't naturally cool itself, problems will increase worldwide. Drought, heat, even during grand solar minimum. It's like they want to fight the natural well, they are fighting the natural process. That's a downward spiral, that someone's got to step in and stop. And I can see it now. These scientists, the same mad global warming scientists that are probably White House advisors as far as the scientific community, talking with Trump. Well, Trump, we cannot afford another Houston or New Orleans or Florida, Carolinas. We can't afford that again. Mississippi, Alabama, these hurricanes, we can't afford it. FEMA has no money left. Guys, if you don't believe that, check the data. They're almost broke. But so we got to stop it, Mr. Trump. We got to stop it. And in their pockets are probably carbon tax credits that they can sell. But anyway, so he said, okay, let's don't have any more disasters right now. We got trade wars. We got Afghanistan. We got elections. We don't need another major hurricane. So let's just shut them down. Bad move. Bad move. Never works out well with these mad scientists. We saw what CERN did. And I said in the video last year, when they closed it down and they had reached record tera electron volts, they may have accomplished what they needed. And that's why we haven't heard anything out of them this year. Usually by this time of the year, they're getting into their heavy production every year. They're shut down over the winter. In the spring, they will come back up. They will start running everything, smaller experiments, getting into higher and higher tera electron volt runs and collisions, and build up until right before Christmas. And that's when they start running their gold ion experiments and everything. But I think they achieved this illuminance that they wanted. That's another sign. But here our markets are again steady at 4.6. Guys, I didn't want to come in and stay very long. I wanted to update everyone on the markets and the side plays like this agricultural damage in China. And the move maybe will boost our stocks even higher when China opens their markets and we see the reports coming out of there, if they're going to open their tariffs against imports of our ag products. That's going to be a major deal. Let's see. Rainbow Citizen says Trump has slowed down the chemtrails. It's been wonderful seeing normal clouds again. Guys, that's something hard for me to report on, but I appreciate it because here in Mississippi, central Mississippi, and you don't hardly ever see a chemtrail. Jackson is the largest city in central Mississippi, has one basically small airport. It's a national airport, but it's not a big one like Dallas and Atlanta and all that. And then you've got a couple down on the coast, and small ones are scattered around, municipal airports like up in Tupelo and Hattiesburg. But we just don't have that many, even though we have two major Air Force bases. And I do listen every morning to the jets that practice out of Meridian over here where we live. It's a short jump. It's about 90 miles. It doesn't take long for them, but I just don't see it like some of you guys do. And that's one of the reasons that I don't do the reporting on it. Nick Robinson, 5G as a weapon. It is terrible, Nick. The video that I worked on yesterday afternoon that has not been completed is about 5G. And guys, you're not going to believe some of the things that are happening right now. They have snuck into some cities that were not primarily on the first list of openings for 5G cities for 2019. And they're moving very fast. Down in the Gulfport area, just north of I-10 in the Landon Road area. I've lived there 4 years. I have friends in that area. They already have 5G. Some of the antennas are mounted on their houses. These people are getting fried. They've got antennas now that mount on the window, on the shade right inside your house. It's picking up through the window from a pole and beaming it through your home at 5G. And what they're doing and promoting it, and I'll add the promo video for 5G into my update later. It's the most wonderful thing to happen. It's better than ice cream in Disneyland. They're showing how fast that the downloads are, and they're extremely fast, but no one's showing the effect of the of the radiation with the meter. And so we're in the next couple of days, I'm going to travel to maybe a couple of different cities within the 200-mile radius that I know that have been saturated, and we'll update from there. But if any of you guys that have these meters, that the EMF 380s and 360s, that can do videos in some of the cities, again, you've got Gulfport. I've got friends that are down in the Louisiana area saying that parts of New Orleans are getting heavily saturated. So you guys in that area, just go in there, maybe get a picture of it, and something we can use, and have your meter with you. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a camera, I'm going to take my meter, and I'm going to go down in the next few days to the Gulfport area, and I'm going to find out what I can. I may make a swipe, just hit 10 and move east into New Orleans. Now, from the reports that from friends have emailed me and just said, BP, these towers are going up in a lot of places, house to house, block to block, saturating areas from New Orleans east around the lake over towards the French Quarter and the river. And they're talking about just block to block. Guys, there's no way this is good. And New Orleans was not on the first list. You look at the major cities, Dallas, LA, Atlanta, some other cities, but if you look at all the stuff that was coming out in January of the cities listed, New Orleans and Gulfport were not part of it. Why? Same psychology that the people that are building the wall don't put it out until they're almost finished, so they don't get all the protesters. And it's all the damage is done. But we'll get it. We'll look into that. But a lot of you guys have meters, and the ones that can report on it, then just let us know. You can come in here when we go live. And also, you can put pictures up on our website in the chat room. Just click over on the camera at bpearthwatch.com, and you'll see where people upload pictures, which I go over there 2 or 3 times a day and check that. Yeah, Nick says I don't use Bluetooth anymore. Guys, don't. When I had a home phone put in not too long ago because of our live show, it helps on the calls because my cell phone doesn't pick up out here very well. But the engineer for the phone company, he had a Bluetooth on when he got out of his van. He was coming over, and we were going to check, and I have what's called a 4-wire set up, and so we use 2 for the internet and 2 for the phone. But whatever, I asked him about 5G, and he was talking about it was going to be real high, and I said, how about those Bluetooths on your head there? He says, well, I've been wondering about that. So I popped out my EMF 380 meter, and when he saw what was happening with his Bluetooths, he took them off and threw them in the van, and he rode all day long with them so he could talk and take orders and talk with I guess who all he was communicating with. But he took those things off very quickly. And so don't use anything that's not wired. Headphones, keyboards, mouses that are not wired are putting that, even though you pull them away from the monitor and your PC guys, they are frying your hands, and it causes what they call it non-technically calcium loss in your joints and arthritis and things like that, and actually changes and crippling arthritis. If you carry it in your pocket, you could become sterile. There's reports that have been coming out for over a year, heart attacks from people carrying their cell phone in their pocket. And now 5G is hitting, and you're talking about possibly going 15 times as strong in some areas as far as speed wise. Now, I haven't seen in-depth meter recordings, and that's why I want to get some myself, and I'm going to record them, and we'll look at that damage, guys. But don't be in a hurry to get this 5G, guys. They are making these very small antennas that, again, mount on house to house. Some of them look like small direct TV dishes, but only about the size of a plate instead of a direct 24-inch dish. So, man, they just snuck in, and it's incredible. Now, you know, during part of this trade war has to do with 5G, and that's Huawei. And Trump has shut down a lot of that because not only were they involved with 5G is not really why he stopped it, but because they were in with the Chinese military. And so some of that, I don't know if that's going to be in part of the sanctions lifted until December 15th or not. I haven't seen the full report. I'm sure that it will come out today. It may already be out. But guys, this 5G is a killer. And if you look down north of I-10 in the Gulfport area, and if you guys along the coast, you can go to Google Maps. And you know how you can go down to a certain road and kind of drive down the road? Go down to Landon Road north of 10 and scan it. And there's two giant towers. As you turn in off I-10, you'll be turning west. That welcome you into that area. These are large towers, and they are prickling with these small broadcast 5G antennas. And they're building brand new subdivisions out Landon Road for you guys. And but again, you can look at that. And I think it's time for us to become more aware. And by doing that, you have to report it. And we have to let people know. And what they're doing in some of these cities is for instance, in New Orleans, they came in, got with the city council people, and made a big money deal. In other words, instead of building towers, they can just mount it on the existing poles. And again, they're putting some on houses. And they're putting in between houses on outer walls so they'll bounce around in that whole area. But the city leaders in New Orleans made a big money deal for over, I think it was 10 or 20-year deal with so many dollars per pole and per installation. And what that does is bypass the regulations on the big towers because you're using existing infrastructure, and they snuck it in. And now New Orleans probably won't see a lot of that money. It will be grafted into the politics. But that's what happened there. So they sold the New Orleans politicians on the board that allowed this, sold out everyone there. And guys, that is a very congested area. Now, so they've sold out for money the people. They're getting blasted. And most of them don't know about it. And even the arguments in this board meeting where the city signed the deal with, I think, AT&T and Verizon, some of the other ones, there was people in there that were standing up saying this causes cancer. And then the city council stood up and said, oh, no, there's no proof of that. You can't prove that when it's been proved with 4G. That's how messed up this situation is. Yeah, and guys, I've been in New Orleans several times. Worked down there one entire summer over in New Orleans East for you guys in that area, just south of the lake. Had a big crew down there doing some work. But now the game has changed. And yeah, says by the end of 2020, 50%, if not more, of the country at least will be switched to 5G. I have no doubt because of how swiftly they are moving. In other words, the saturation is amazing. That's what blows my mind. How many are in a square mile? Now, AT&T and some of these folks in New Orleans made a deal where they can, in the future, buy an additional 15 square mile area at a time. Do you know how many people live in a densely populated area in 15 square miles? So that's how they're moving. And the cities are saying, yeah, that'll be another good paycheck. Yes, let's do that. Just as soon as you get your equipment ready, let's do it. And so, guys, I'm not sure, even some of the employees, if they realize the danger. For a couple of years now, we've been seeing videos to where people were reporting problems. And that was at 4G on some of these towers. So people that worked on the towers and installation crews with their teeth hurting. And we're talking about microwave and different type radiations. But now at 5G, and again, the towers down in Gulfport are immense. They look like, unlike normal towers. They're giants. Looks like a science fiction movie. So what they're doing is they're going to relay down to all the small areas, and they're saturating the houses, and it's going to be one big Wi-Fi radiation zone. And what's it going to do to the people? How long is it going to take before uh, symptoms come out in mass like you would from living near a nuclear radiation leak. Think about that, guys. Dow's at 409. Still, I think it's going to hold in there. And again, on these bounces. And I think China may follow it when they open up their markets. Let me change the screen just 1 second. What you're looking at here, your indices kind of around the planet. Starts at the top at the S&P, it's up. NASDAQ Composite is up. Dow Jones Industrial Average, 425. Come down to Hang Seng. Again, it's closed. It closed down at 543.42. First one moves, is the winner in that battle. We won this one. We lost the other day when they dropped the currency with, I think, over 700 points that day. But you can see Hang Seng is down. These are that you see in red, starting in this area, Nikkei down, are Asian markets. And the Hang Seng is very close to our markets. Look at the value at 25,281. Look at the Dow Jones is 26,000. And they've been running parallel up and down until this move by the Trump administration. So here's the difference: plus 425, minus 543. Let's put China in a bind. Their agricultural products are in trouble. Their their swine industry, if you want to call it that, the pigs are in trouble. When they open, what will they do? That I think it will probably rise, and what that's going to do is Trump's going to win the next move, because if they rise and they stop some of their tariffs on our ag product imports from us to them, then our markets are going to jump again. So it was a beautiful move and perfect timing. Always attack when the enemy is sleeping. And so that's what we've seen here, and how this will work out, no one knows. But short term, looks like it'll be a bounce in both markets. But guys, the New World Order, someone said earlier, they like destruction. As long as the U.S. markets are strong, the U.S. is strong. Weaken it, let a recession come in, start a little chaos break out here and there, and it's easy for other countries to make their moves at that point. Sharon Legnan says we have 5G in Florida. Sharon, what city are you in, if you don't mind, or area? Chinese, Patrick's saying Chinese on the Smithfield port farms here. Exactly. And probably a lot of illegal immigrant work. Tallahassee, Florida has 5G. Thank you, Joey. Yeah, that's a major city. Just head 10 east. Yeah, Celtic, the stock market is based on fiat currency. Wonder what it looks like with the gold backed currency. Well, guys, Celtic, that is always been the flight to safety, but it's also the trap of the end times. Remember, read Ezekiel 7. The stumbling block, the iniquity. Why? Because why would it be worthless? Because it's going to be caught in a down cycle, biblically, because it will be worthless. It won't be when the markets are up. Everyone will rush into it at the last minute because the stock markets are collapsing. They think it's a flight to safety. On that, and at that point, in one of those cycles, is when it's going to shut down, and people are going to be looking, oh, what the hell have I got in my hand? And I'm hungry. My kids are hungry. Someone said the other day, I'm going to make some gold biscuit and gravies or something. You're right. Think about it. So a lot of people still are hung up on this gold deal and investing in gold. And so many YouTube channels that used to be not into gold in the last year, you look at people I've talked to on my radio show and watched their channels. It's just spread. And I understand that demonetization and things like that across YouTube forces people into other means. But for God's sakes, guys, if you're in that situation, find something else like we do. We have survival food and water filters and things like that. And some exciting news on that front, guys. Late noon, the UPS came and they delivered a small solar oven that we've picked up on our channel from My Patriot Supply. And for years, talking to the folks at My Patriot Supply, I said, when you get an opportunity, please pick up any solar type products you can get. And so this is a small purse size. It's about a foot long solar oven. You unzip it, fold it out, 2 reflective shields with this super type Pyrex glass tube there. And then it'll heat water to 150 degrees in a few minutes, which would sterilize it. But you can cook in it. It's got trays and all. I'm going to unbox it, do a video, and take it outside and show you. It's just a survival thing you can put in your backpack, guys, but it is one of the things, if you're into survival food, you know it's in Mylar packs and it freeze dried. And it tells you to pour some warm water in there, let it rehydrate. And some you just eat like that. Some you rehydrate it, then cook it. But warm water. And so quickly you've got warm water if you're bugged out or camping out or traveling, to where you open up this purse size thing. This tube fills up. It looks like it's maybe over a quart at a time of water that you can heat, use for your food, sterilize, and you can actually put products inside and bake it in the glass. It comes with trays. But that's out survival supplies. That, to me, that's why I asked them to ship me one so I could demo it, is a major move in the right direction. Again, our markets are 43 on the Dow. And if you notice the headline right under that, guys, it was up at 500. And here, that headline that's coming in now says the Dow eased off its highs after riot police clashed with Hong Kong protesters. This has been going on, but it's getting heavier and heavier. China's on the border, but they have this probably a million people in China called the PLA that they left there, that they've always been there, and they're installed as a undercover group, basically quiet group, until a national disaster or something like a riot and protest occur. But they're Chinese, and we saw beatdowns yesterday from what they were calling undercover police and security. So again, that effect is what we're talking about. Dow eased off its highs after riot police clashed with Hong Kong protesters. That is putting pressure on China to make a move. Remember, they bought their top 3 bank-owned entities. That's always bad. It's a bad, bad, bad sign. Now, if they want Hong Kong, they say, and what they did, guys, think about this. Okay, we want to start extraditing Hong Kong criminals. Bring them over to China. They will disappear in a gulag or die or have the organs harvested. And we'll handle this. So immediately the Hong Kong citizens said, whoa, it's like Hillary getting elected. And so they've been protesting for their lives. That's how that started. But why did they say it then? Was it because they knew their banks were in trouble and they needed to come into Hong Kong, take over the Hang Seng, because it's up there, even though it's down today? It's up 25,000. We're at 26,000. Was that why China started? Okay, we're going to extradite you guys so that Hong Kong would protest, then they could reverse it and move in and take over. That's how it works. If Hong Kong was really worried, China was really worried about extraditing people from Hong Kong, they would simply grab them in the middle of the night. You'd never hear from them again. If that was really the problem. But what it did, they knew the protests would arise. They know that Hong Kong likes its freedom. And they took advantage of their own chaos. Our skies today, Thank you, says BP. We also need to pay attention to what's going on. Let me pull this back up. Chat's moving fast. We also need to pay attention to what's going on in our skies. It's not doing good. Um, our skies, exactly what are you talking about? Is it chemtrails you're talking about, or the cosmic radiation, as some people call it? Um, Let me know on that. Joey, I don't know how the situation in Kashmir region is doing, by the way, because before they set foot with thousands and thousands of troops, they shut down their phones and internet. Only thing we know is what is allowed to come out unless someone possibly can sneak out a video or another report like that. So they immediately the world off of Kashmir, turned it off. That's battle plan. First thing you do, knock out communications. Greener Pastures is saying this is important, guys, from Drudge. Average farm is 1.3 million in depth. That's the average. And to look at what's going to happen next year. Someone's saying, Corgo Grogo, the sun is rising about 15 degrees further north than it did last year. My flowers are pointing to a different place that they did not last year. Plus, it rises over the wrong corner of a building. I'm glad you said that. You know, I've noticed it too here, a little further north. And I was amazed that it was coming in a certain window this spring and summer, especially now. It's never done that. Tilting of the earth. That normally happens season to season. You know, summer, we're tilted towards the sun. South Pole is tilted away, but in the winter, it's just the opposite. But things are changing. Definitely. I said something to my wife about that. Kimberly's saying the sun is 15 degrees different. And I did a video about 3 years ago, guys, where someone was interviewing one of the Hopi Indians out in there. I think it was Arizona, New Mexico. And he was a farmer, small farmer, completely Hopi tradition. He said the same thing. He said him and all the elders that they plant by the seasons and the sunrise in different areas, that it was 2 to 3 months off. This, I think, about 3 years ago when I did that video. Some of you may remember that. And so we are seeing differences, and we're seeing crop burns. And one thing about my small garden that has always been messed up is that it's small, and all of my trees, guys, are probably 60, 70 feet, and a lot of them. So my garden's kind of in a thin line, and it gets sun for 2 or 3 hours a day at different parts. You know, it's not full sun all day like a lot of gardens, but mine this year hasn't burned up. I've seen some other ones that were wide open in the sun have some problems. So even though it's a slower growth, it seems to be working out well. And I mentioned fall garden, and I know a lot of people aren't into gardening, but everyone would really love to be a gardener if we have a major food problem. But we went and planted a fall garden. And with this extreme heat and moisture, guys, I'm surprised at how fast it is growing. Yep. I haven't set up a moderator lately, guys. If you don't want to behave in my chat room, you don't have to be here. Now, I can take you out, or you can say, hold up. Why don't I just back up and listen and talk with some like-minded people? But if you came here to start trouble, you're dealing with an old Mississippi redneck, and he's not going to put up with it very long. You won't do it to my face, and you won't do it on my channel for very long. But don't make me have to distract from what I'm trying to do. And that's what trolls do, guys. So embarrass yourself. Now, our skies will, you have to get into contact with me so that I can give you the call-in information for our live shows. I'll get with you after the show on that. Says some of the people here. Thank you, BP. You're welcome about that, guys. I don't like being distracted like that. There's no use in it. It's not constructive. It's destructive, and that's what happens. Someone saying China has the 5G. That's why I'm sure, guys, they put that thing out in mass as soon as they started producing it. And you don't, it's not just the radiation and Wi-Fi problems, but it allows complete control and watch over an entire population, including the ability to control drones in any neighborhood, DARPA dogs and robots in any neighborhood at lightning fast speed. The download and upload speed is so incredible in some of these 5G demonstrations that you see. It makes you want it, especially if you work on the internet a lot. But man, it's not worth it. It's that Pandora's box, as many have said. And it's scary. Guys, I'll have to put up the 5G promo video that's out, because you look at these people and you look how they're surrounded and they're smiling. But a couple of them already look like they've got bags under their eyes, even in the damn video. Now that's crazy, and they just don't look healthy. But anyway, it's a scary situation. Avoid it at all costs, because it will start crippling you. It's going to allow government control, but the immediate and the most damage will be done by the radiation. We've got folks on here that, thank you, Darren. I'll take a reach if you need. Thank you. Thank you. I will, let me see what I can do about that before the next, as we come into another video. I will set up a few moderators if you guys think we need it. Someone's saying 1G, 2G, 3G mobile data, 4G. Let's see. Chat's moving fast. Hold on. 5G stands for generation, right? And guys, this has started a long time ago in the satellite industry, Gen 6 and some things like that, and Gen 5. But this, it's critical. This is something to where, in the concentration that I'm seeing from some of these reports, almost house to house or block to block, it's like living near nuclear radiation. That's how important it is for you to be aware of where you're at. Is that where you want to raise yourself and your children? I know a lot of people it's hard, it's impossible, but you need to be aware regardless, and you can make your decisions about your future from the knowledge that you gain from paying attention. You'll make informed decisions and not be on TV watching game shows all day with your high-speed 5G, tearing you apart and your kids. And they're putting these Wi-Fi cameras now on the baby cribs. 5G frying the infants. Not a good deal. And something, guys, has got to stop this. I will be one of the last ones to get it because I'm so far in the country, but they are starting to put across the nation prepared rural towers now with 5G. That's begun. I don't know if the broadcasts have begun in some of these areas, but that's how they're going to do it. Once they establish the cities, a few of these taller towers out in the rural areas, and they're going to concentrate into the rural areas, and here's how they're going to do it. Click here, do an internet test. Oh, you need 5G. Call this number. Boom. They got you. That's how it will work, especially in the rural areas. The cities, and what they're doing, they're fishing. They're seeing who's getting what and where we need to put some relays and bounce some information around. And it's a shame because of this employs a lot of good people, this industry, but they're being harmed too. But you got to make a living. That's a conundrum we're all in, and all the things that we do. But guys, we've been on now. We're going into what we're dealing with, and we're getting into about an hour here or so, maybe a little more. But I wanted to come in, look at the market openings, and talk with you guys about some of the things that we're seeing. Joy's saying you don't want to live by one of these tires. No, you don't. And anybody that can get readings that are that can send them in, again, just you don't have to send the pictures in, but that always helps. Take a picture of your meter, it in, put it in the books.com, go to the chats, click on the over there where you chat, there's a camera, and you can load images to us. And that's a secure site, by the way. You don't have to worry about any problems with it. It's SSL, it's the SSL certificate. So, guys, I'm going to back out of this. Look for a couple of updates through the day, and possibly coming in around 2:30. So we watch the response from China. And compare, guys, I know this may be a little boring, but compared to listening to mainstream continuously broadcast the same mockingbird repeat message, it's even spreading to news sites, TV channels. These are very important issues to watch. Now, more than likely, Epstein is in hell, or wishes he was. But Barr and some other folks are saying no one's getting away with anything. We will see. But guys, the jailhouse situation there was totally rigged. No way around it. If you looked at the details, I'm not going to go into them and get this video kicked off, but that definitely a planned deal. Too much went on, and new information come out. Look it up. The let me back up just a minute, guys. Thanks, repeat hours, guys. I was looking for an answer from you, and I wasn't trying to on another question. Let me back up and see if I can get that. Thank you, Darren. 541 in chat. Darren, I'm going to try to give you a call in the next day or two. Okay. Thank you. All right, I'll check that out. You got it, buddy. Guys, I'm going to sign out. Watch for a couple of updates and watch for the closing. We'll come back live. And what I'll do, I won't come in like I was talking about yesterday with the silence for 30 minutes and then come in right. Well, I'll just come in live and we'll watch it. We'll talk through the information together. We can watch your markets and go over the headlines at the same time. Again, if you got any 5G information or pictures, guys, do put those on bpearthwatch.com in the live chat. This is a heads up, guys. I'm back out. Got a couple things I got to do. You guys be safe. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. And if you got anything, as you learn and we share information here, the key is to share it. I've always said you can share my videos. You can anything that we're doing here. You're welcome, Darren. No problem, buddy. But great grain robbery. Thank you, Catherine. Thanks, guys. Okay, got a couple things got to run and take care of. This is a heads up. Be safe.